Hi, hello, my name is Gomer Joseph. I hope you've all been having a great day so far. Welcome back to another True Crime Tuesdays video. If you are new, I welcome you. Today, I'll be discussing the unsolved disappearance of Keeshae Jacobs. This case is sad and troubling. Keisha planned to spend one night with friends and intended to go back home the next day, but it just all went so terribly wrong. Now, I encourage you all to do your own research with this case and not just look at my video for all of the information. Here we go. Keisha Jacobs was born on January 1st of 1995 in Richmond, Virginia to Tony, and I could not find the name of Keisha's father, but I do know that she had an older brother named Davon. Now, Keisha, she grew up seeing her mother work hard to provide for her and her older brother. Keisha was close to her family. She was known to be loyal, sensitive, she enjoyed good food, she loved being around kids. Keisha always made sure to make other people smile, she loved hugs, and she was also a cheerleader. On September 26th of 2016, Keisha is 21 years old, and she texted her mom Tony that day, and she was always in contact with her mother. She told her mother Tony that she would be staying over at a friend's house that night. And this was after Keisha had an argument with a boyfriend of hers. Regardless of the argument that Keisha had with her boyfriend, she still planned to go ahead and spend the night with this friend, where other friends dropped her off at a house on 3100 block of East Broad Street. Keisha promised her mother that she would come back the next morning to make her older brother Davon some pancakes. When Keisha arrived at the house, she texted her mother to tell her that she was there. Unfortunately, that would be the last time Tony would ever hear from her daughter again. Since Tony didn't hear from Keisha like she always did, Tony was beginning to grow concerned. Seeing that Keisha didn't come back home, she calls Keisha, but there is no answer, worrying Tony even more. Tony called Keisha's friends, who also didn't hear from her. Then eventually Tony would call the police, telling them how she was certain that Keisha was missing. But unfortunately, like we usually hear about these cases about people who go missing when they are 21 years old, the police tell Tony that Keisha is an adult and that they need to wait a little longer to start looking for her. A couple of days after Keisha has gone missing, and I can only imagine that this is the longest couple of days that Tony has ever experienced, Keisha's friends meet with Tony, explaining how they dropped her off at this house, but when they stopped by the house, the man who answered the door told the friends how Keisha wasn't there. Tony decided to go ahead and meet with this man herself, and when she arrived at the house, she met Otis, who went by Omar, but I'm going to call him Otis, Otis L. Tucker, who Keisha knew through a female friend who Tony did not trust. Otis claims that he saw Keisha at like 5 p.m. on the day that she went missing, but Tony was like, that's not right, because Keisha was home at 5 p.m. Then Otis would go on to keep on changing the time, like, oh, she was here at 5:30 or she was here at 6, but Tony was like, no, these times are not adding up. Since Otis is looking sketchy, Tony calls the police again, telling them how Otis's story was just not making any sense and that this house was the last place that Keisha was last seen. Now, there were officers who arrived at the house, but instead of the police who Tony called, the police who Tony called were not searching the house. The police she called asked a specific detective to look around the house. Like, is that like usually like, are police allowed to do that? Because I mean, to me, like, I'm not a police officer, but that just sounds like lazy police work to me. Like, how in the world am I going to be called to go ahead and search this house? I'm going to go ahead and ask this other police officer to search the house that I was asked to search. Regardless of who was searching, there was no sign of Keisha at all. But they did find bloodstains, but it was not enough to show that someone's life was taken. Eventually, police began to start digging into Otis. Looking into his past, they find out that Otis was arrested for attempting to take the life of some woman, but the charges against him were dismissed. There was also someone named Keisha G who actually brought Otis into that house. It was really her great grandmother's house. And eventually Keisha would eventually try getting Otis out of the house because she did not feel safe with him there. But Keisha's great grandmother was not taking her great granddaughter's side. Instead, she wanted Otis to stay. And soon after Keisha went missing, Otis conveniently decided to move from Virginia to Florida. Eventually, after Keisha's disappearance, Tony would get tips, but unfortunately, these would be false tips, giving Tony more heartache. Unfortunately, Tony, who is already trying to figure out where her daughter could be, just experiences more trials. Months after Keisha went missing, Tony's son, Davon, had his life taken away from him. Even though, it was never determined that Keisha passed away, with Davon gone, Tony has now lost both of her children. But Tony and the police were certain that this crime and Keisha's disappearance were not connected. I even heard that the person who took Davon's life is no longer in prison after spending a short sentence in prison due to some sort of plea deal. Like, how in the world do you take somebody's life and you allow them to have this plea deal? Like, the person whose life they took is no longer here, so you're just gonna go ahead and let this person serve an ample amount of time and then go live their life freely after they took somebody else's life? Like, I can never, understand that. I can never comprehend that. This year, Otis was actually arrested, but not in connection to Keisha's disappearance. While he was in Jacksonville, Florida, he was arrested and charged for taking the life of a 35-year-old mother of 3 named Ashley Fowler. There's not really much more information that I have about Keisha's case. What I do know is that Tony is not giving up trying to find her daughter, and her theory is that Otis trafficked Keisha. So I completely forgot to go ahead and mention this while I was recording. If you are watching this video and you have any information at all, please be a snitch. Call 911 or call the Richmond Police Department's number, which is 804-646-5125. And there is a $3,000 reward. Keisha has been missing for over 7 years. I pray that those who are responsible for making Keisha disappear would repent of their sins and trust in Jesus Christ alone to save them. That way they could truly realize the evil that they have done and provide Keisha's loved ones with the answers that they have been searching for. Keisha's mother, Tony, has gone through so much these past 7 years, and it's a miracle that she is still standing. Tony is still fighting hard, so hard, to locate her daughter. My prayer is that God would provide Keisha's loved ones with the answers that they have been searching for, that God would comfort them, and that Keisha's loved ones would seek God. The God that I serve, the God of the Bible, is an all-seeing God. He knows exactly what happened to Keisha that day and knows exactly where she is. I thank you all for taking the time in your day to watch this video. If you did like this video, please feel free to hit the like button. If you have any thoughts about this case at all, please leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you'd like to see more videos from me, please feel free to subscribe and click the bell to be notified about the next case. If there is a certain true crime case that you'd like me to cover, go ahead and let me know. I will see y'all for the next True Crime Tuesdays, and I will talk to y'all later.